What's the deal with the new Joker sequel movie betraying its audience? Reviews say that it somehow seems to hate its audience. Can someone explain what concretely happens that shows contempt for the viewers? I would like to declare this thread a spoiler zone so that it's okay to disclose and discuss story beats. So only for people who have already watched it or are not planning to see it. I'm not planning to see it myself. I'm just curious what's meant by that from a storytelling perspective. Answer. The first movie generated a great deal of controversy and discourse. Partially as part of lingering fear due to a mass shooting that occurred at the release of The Dark Knight Rises, there were police presence at theaters when Joker released. There was a lot of media written about what the Joker means as a symbol to a particular type of alienated and angry young, mostly white, mostly men. This controversy gave the movie a lot of attention and played into its success. Fitting for this controversy, the movie was highly stylized and based on 1970s movies like King of Comedy and Taxi Driver. The later also inspired a famous shooting of President Ronald Reagan by a mentally unwell man whose insanity defense would lead to a backlash, weakening the insanity defense legally thereafter. The movie was very commercially and critically successful. The sequel takes a massive shift, starting with that highly stylized nature. The movie is styled as a jukebox musical, which could not be more different than the first film's 70s grit. This adds a stylistic element to what everyone is talking about, which is the Joker sequel seems like a long angry response to the way the audience embraced the first film. To start, the premise of the new film revolves around the Joker's trial, which means much of it involves examining the first movie. Second, the premise of the trial is the Joker's insanity defense, which is the first of many meta-elements, as it shows an example of the fallout of the kind of taxi driver public acts of violence. Lastly, because the way the insanity defense is structured, it becomes an examination of the Joker personality and persona. How people admire it, the harm it does, and what it means for Arthur. It becomes a very meta Fight Club-style examination of toxic violent personas put on by angry people and the way they admire mass violence. The third act centering around Arthur's ultimate rejection of the Joker's persona as only being harmful to himself and others, but those inspired by him being unable to let it go and continuing on acts of harm. Among other scenes, we literally have Arthur running from Joker fans in makeup. It can be described as anti-fan service. This is making no commentary on its quality for better or worse. Only that the director had a clear intention on what he wanted to say, and many critics are drawing away that he wanted to say something very clear about the audience that loved the first movie. Yeah, the director pretty much came out and said he did not like many of the people who were fans of the original, so this was kind of a swipe at them. It had the same problem Rick and Morty did. It presented a character who is objectively bad, the Joker and Rick in my examples, shows them doing horrible things, and all but explicitly frames them as the villain. Then a bunch of the worst people you know started acting like said villain was their fucking spirit animal, and pretending that not only were they not evil, they were actually the best, most coolest, most smartest, most sex-havingest people on the planet. If you sympathized with Fleck early in the first movie, that's fine. He's sympathetic, right up until he starts murdering people. If you felt a deep, relatable kinship with the Joker, you should probably do some navel-gazing. The director picked up on that, so in some ways, making the sequel so goofily antithetical to the original was his way of cutting those people down to size. Those people see Joker as some kind of anti-hero, mass movement Christ figure who was getting back at the system that treated him unjustly. The second movie reveals he's just a psychopathic loser with a terminal case of main character syndrome. I don't understand how people's minds make that hard turn in that direction. To me, the messaging was about how a broken societal system creates an environment where people are beaten down, discarded and forgotten. And through this system of oppression, the worst parts of a person's inner being are allowed/fueled into taking over, creating monsters that in turn wreak havoc on that society. I left the theater feeling like I should look out for my neighbor better and support systems/government/groups where we take care of the sick and the poor with compassion and empathy. I guess Alfred was right when he said, some men just want to watch the world burn. I don't understand how people's minds make that hard turn in that direction. The main theme of the first film, IMO, is that abuse perpetuates abuse, and that you can be a victim and an abuser at the same time. Some people extrapolated from the above that abuse is justified, which is exactly the opposite of the film's intended message.